I've been talking about how fierce the running back competition is going to be going all off season. Apparently, the rotation is already obvious.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holton, and thank you for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching this show on YouTube, whatever platform you want to pick, you can download this podcast. It's always going to be free, and I am going to always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, according to a couple of sources, not just one, a couple, two different ones, it's already obvious after 3 practices what the running back rotation is going to be. At least who running back 1 is going to be. Late Saturday afternoon after practice, Scott Schrader, my partner in crime over there at WeAreSC.com, he posted a little note, and it said, the D-line group plays with a lot of energy. They were flying around. The new running back from junior college, Waymon Jordan, is a dude. Jacoby Lane is from another planet, end quote. We already knew that Jacoby Lane was a freak, a warlock, a witch. Talked about that on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC. I've been talking to you about how excited I am about the defensive line. So that's old news. I want to focus on that running back, Waymon Jordan. I have a really good idea who sourced that information for Scott. Solid source. The intel is very good. Not going to deny any of it. That person has trained eyes who passed that information along. However, this morning, I woke up and I got a text from someone who's really, really, really close to the team. And this individual offered me 3 different insights. 1, Waymon is an amazing running back. He will likely be the feature back. Gives off an Austri Genti type of vibe. Number 2, Husan Longstreet is the real deal. He's obviously doesn't have the experience that Mayaba has, but don't be surprised if he ends up QB1. And the third was DJ, referring to Xavier Jordan, has his stuff together. Wasn't exactly the word. This year that was an issue in 2024 as a freshman, but he looks on track to be scheduled for wide receiver 3. That's the prediction. I'm going to get to points 2 and 3 later. Right. However, that's 2 different people now talking about Jordan as the guy, the dude. And let me tell you right now, I am more than confident that these 2 different sources do not know each other. They've probably never met, never spoken a word to each other. So to hear that from 2 different people, that speaks volumes in my book. A couple of weeks ago, my everydayers, you heard me talk about Waymon. In fact, last week, when spring camp opened, I described Jordan as, quote, a thicker than I anticipated and a taller version of former Trojans bowling ball running back Curtis McNeil, called him Moody. Very similar. And I made the comment that if Waymon can make that transition from junior college ball to USC's level, Big Ten conference, D1 football, he's going to be in the mix. So this source said, quote, apparently Waymon is not only a power back, but he's also making guys miss left and right. So now I'm thinking, okay, with that being said, look, I have, and I'm trying to keep everything in context here. I have no idea, who was playing offensive line, who was on defense during those practice repetitions. But again, the source said the competition at running back isn't really close, but I'm sure that will be obvious to everyone, end quote. And then, before I got to the end of the text, person signed off with a PS postscript. Also, the new kicker is a stud. Okay, we'll talk about the new kicker on another show. But I want to get back to the running back situation. If it's that obvious that the rest of the run, then I have to imagine the rest of the running back room sees it too. I mean, you love having guys that are good and who are possibly difference makers. And remember, I talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show with regards to David Bailey, the edge player, outside linebacker from Stanford, who's in the transfer portal. I was saying you don't want to rock the boat too much with the guys who that you recruited, who you've been developing for 2 years, maybe 3 years. The same thing. I have this concern, and I've raised this before. The running back room cannot just be one of those 1 year plug and play guys every single year. You got to start playing the guys that you've been recruited, that you've developed. Again, I understand if this guy is that big of a difference maker and is going to shake and bake and make people miss, but you can also run in between the tackles and plow through people, fall forward after first contact, then you play him, obviously. But where does that leave Brian Jackson and Amarian Peterson, who both played incredibly well in the bowl game? Those are the last two running backs we saw in a real game play. And then you bring in Eli Sanders through the transfer portal. So now you're at 4. You got Riley Wormley, who's enrolled early. And then you have Harry Dalton, who's coming in this summer. That's 6 running backs. That's too many? Is it too many? The coaching staff's going to have to make that decision. And we'll find out, if this is going to be the word of the day, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment as well, attrition. Players who, decide, maybe the grass is greener elsewhere. I put my time in here at USC. It doesn't feel like I'm the guy or I'm going to get a fair chance. So guys jump into the spring transfer portal window. But again, that's 2 different sources. Both are speaking very, very highly. Let me repeat that. Very, very, very. It's always 3 times for emphasis on this show. They're speaking really good, really highly. Waymon Jordan Jr. Again, it's early in spring camp. It's been 3 practices. The pads just came on this past Saturday. They'll be back at it again today, Tuesday. You're watching this episode, hopefully. First thing every day. Part of the Locked On Network, Locked On USC. So now I'm going to be able to see the guys in pads when they walk out. Get to check them out during warm-ups before they kick us out of practice. I'm intrigued. I remember when Moody, Curtis McNeil, it seemed like he was in Lane Kiffin's doghouse, and then all of a sudden he got the opportunity to play, and it's like, why was this guy on the bench? You don't want to repeat that. You don't want history to repeat itself. But again, you got Brian Jackson, you got Amarian Peterson. Those guys have been in the program for a couple of years. You've got now Waymon Jordan Jr., not to mention Eli Sanders, 1,000-yard rusher from New Mexico. And I just mentioned the 2 incoming freshmen, Riley Wormley, Harry Dalton. We'll see what happens. But I like the news that I'm hearing. Hopefully you do too. In the next segment, we're going to be talking about USC's general manager, Chad Bowden. He's flexing again. He was talking a big game on USC's Trojan Live radio show Monday, and I got all the notes and quotes and my interpretations of what he was saying. Stick around. Every now and then, you look at your bank account and you're going, oh man, the money's a little lower than I wanted it to be. Where did it all go? Well, you probably ate out too much. You probably did a little bit too much shopping, entertaining the girls, the guys, whatever. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's like having your own personal CFO, and so to give you full visibility and total control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments and spending, and you can do it in one place. So you can just stop managing your money, and now you can actually start building some wealth. And you're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Again, instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, and you're going to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. And because you're saving all that money, you can use it over there at Game Time. Look, imagine you're watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy. You're like, oh, wow, I wish I was in that crowd. You're witnessing some unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in. It makes it easier than ever to get, so you can just grab some last-minute tickets, get in your seat, enjoy the game. I talk about Game Time all the time. You know how much I love their app, how easy it is to use. They give you super great deals, the best price, lowest price guarantee. And if you find a ticket in the same section and row for less, they credit you back 110% of the difference. And my favorite feature, there's no surprises. Before you check out, you're going to know what the view from your seat looks like. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So USC's general manager, Chad Bowden, was on the Trojans Live radio show with Sean Cody and Cody Kessler and the host, Jordan Moore. They do this every Monday. Those three, they talk a little football with whether Lincoln Riley, assistant coach, Kamari Ramsey, who was also on following Chad Bowden. But I wanted to talk about USC's general manager. He was Bowden flexing again. You know what I'm talking about. And he wasn't hiding anything. He wasn't holding anything back. In fact, he dropped the dime. He offered a nugget live. Look, he is always in full go mode when he talks. I mean, today, when I was listening, really demonstrative, really animated with his words. He's just really passionate. He loves LA, loves it. So Sean Cody asked Chad, they were talking about recruiting, how well it's been going so far, especially Southern California recruiting, why it's so important, why it's going so well. This is what Chad had to say. Quote, "It's everything. I think when it means more to the kids coming out of the Coliseum, when they can look to the right, look to the left, and they come out of that tunnel and their family is there, their whole family can be at the game, it just means more to them." And he wasn't done. He elaborated. He went full flex. I mean, I can't flex. He said, quote, "And the best football, I've said it over and over again, and I mean it, the best high school football in the country is played in California, especially in Southern California. And we're going to kill it in California, as we already have. And we have a couple of more coming this week," end quote. I'm pausing for a second so that last sentence can sink in. Yes, it's true. Your general manager said there are 2 more commitments coming this week. You're watching this episode of Locked on USC Tuesday. First thing, you better be. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should be asking yourself why. So click that red subscribe button. It's free. It's going to continue to help the show grow. Smash that thumbs up. Click that bell notification button, because if you miss an episode, you're probably going to miss something relevant to USC. So I don't think it's going to take Sherlock Holmes to figure out one of these 2 commitments. If you follow the show, and you should be, and if you follow wearesc.com, and you should be, we've been talking about running back Deshaun Rudeau. He's making his announcement. He's going to make his commitment known Saturday, April 5th. So if we're getting to this week, we're connecting the dots. Yeah. I have a feeling Deshaun is one of those guys. Could be wrong, but crystal balls have been rolling in for him since, I don't know, for well over a month now. So the question is, who's the other one that's going to be popping before Bedell? I can't imagine they're both going to happen on Saturday. Look, everyone is waiting patiently for Tom Tapui. You know, we're all sitting by just waiting for him to rub some salt into the Duck fans' wounds after he decommitted. Just make it official. Or is it someone else? Those, I think, are the two top candidates. But is it somebody else? Chad was also asked about the types of players or the body types that he and Riley and the USC coaching staff, what they're looking for, what they're focused on. This is what he had to say. Quote, "It always starts with character and makeup. It starts with guys who are competitive." When I say makeup, they're the makeup inside, their values, their morals, who they are, not the kind you put on your face. It starts with guys who are competitive, guys who have the spirit. No matter what, you could be down 21 points in the fourth quarter, and they're still playing their butts off, and we're going to win in the fourth quarter. Those are the types of kids we're going to bring into the program, and we already have, end quote. Sean Cody asked him, he said, what's your, not Sean Cody, I apologize. Cody Kessler asked him, what's your vision for USC football over the next 3 to 5 years? And I'm not predicting national championships. All of a sudden, Chad cut him off mid-sentence. He says, no, that's what we're doing. That's why I'm here. We're going for it all. USC has won 11 national championships, and all I want to do is help win the 12th. I mean, that's why he's here. You have to, when you're done with this episode, go watch it on YouTube. Watch how he speaks, the voice inflection, where he emphasizes certain points, the dramatic pauses. You really get an idea of what this dude's all about. He was also asked about, USC's 2025 roster. Is it done? Well, he offered up a really intriguing answer. The roster is in a really good place right now. I love the kids we have, and I mean that. Obviously, we might look a little bit into the portal if we have to, just depending on what our attrition looks like in the spring. But our massive focus is on the 2026 class. We're going to sign more high school kids this class, than ever before in USC football history. But if we can if we think there's a move in the spring that helps this football team win games, then we're going to do it, end quote. So Sean Cody followed up on that, about attrition, or maybe it was Jordan who asked about the attrition. He asked Chad, is that part of the formula for signing so many high school kids in this upcoming class? And he didn't want to give anything away, so he said, I don't want to go too much into depth as to why the number's going up. I don't want to say it's entirely attrition, but with the roster numbers going up to 105, there's going to be some things we're going to be able to do that will really help us and help the football program. I don't want to disclose that, but that's the reason for the high number. Okay, so there's some intrigue, some mystery. Attrition is part of everybody's roster. That happens every single year. I'm wondering how much of this has to do with the guys who are reclassifying. USC trying to scoop up the 2026 in California has got a lot of dudes. I mean, a lot of dudes. 2027, not as many, but quite a few. So I'm wondering if USC is making arrangements to scoop up some of those 2027 guys, if that's the plan. Guys are still planning to reclassify. We'll see. He also talked about, how he's really excited for today's practice, Tuesday. He wants to see how the team responds to their second day in pads. Saturday was their first day, but, didn't have anything else going on Saturday. No school, no classes, nothing like that. So Tuesday's practice is in the afternoon. He wants to see how the guys respond after having a full day on their plate. Waking up, doing all that other stuff, going to class, and then showing up ready to rock and roll in pads, going to practice. He also mentioned the importance of keeping the right guys on the roster. He said, quote, "It's everything. Retention is just as important as recruiting. The talent here is really unbelievable, and that's why I say we're really, really close." He only said it twice. But if you were watching the national championship game, January 21st, you're watching Ohio State and Notre Dame, and you see both teams, and you're watching them play, and then you come here, and you're like, man, it's closer than you think. And the most important thing, it's about those guys in the locker room now. And I'm going to make sure that retention is just as important as recruiting. So Chad was with Notre Dame's program. He watched Notre Dame play Ohio State in the national championship game. Then he got a chance to get familiar with USC's roster. He watched how close USC played Notre Dame. He watched how close USC played with Penn State, who was a semifinalist. And he's thinking, you know what? We're close. We're almost there. So he's echoing what Coach Riley said. Now it's just a matter, is that, words that everybody wants to hear, or is it true? Are they blowing hot air up our skirt, or is USC really that close? I think USC is close. They were able to retain a lot of the guys from last year's roster. We know about Emmanuel Prayon. But for the most part, Kamari Ramsey came back. That's big news. That's big time. We'll see what happens. I'll be at practice later today, so I'll have another practice report on tomorrow's episode of Locked on USC. Plus anything else that's newsworthy that drops, I'll have it. But I thought it was interesting what Chad Bowden had to say. Those comments were really interesting as far as attrition, what they're looking for in the transfer portal, how close he thinks this roster is right now, plus everything else. I love how he's just telling everybody, Southern California, this is the best high school football. All those guys that play there are, stay away. We're coming after them. So we'll see what happens. Oh, by the way, Cody Green, he set up his official visit. That's been taken care of. Oregon fans are really worried right now. That's all I can tell you. There was an article put out on the On3 network with Charles Bentley, he works with Cody Green, and USC's in a really good spot. All right, let's just leave it there. We'll talk more about that. But yeah, USC already got Jonas Williams. USC is in a really good spot for Tom Tom. Oregon fans might be, they might be suicidal if Cody Green decommits and becomes a Trojan. We'll see what happens. All right, one more segment to go. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, SupplyHouse is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help on an order, don't worry. SupplyHouse offers expert support and industry-leading service. You'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Masters program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, if you use promo code SH5, you're going to receive 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Look, it was going to take a miracle without JuJu Watkins and the women of Troy. They tried. They fought on. They fought hard in the Elite Eight against UConn. They just didn't have the horses in the end. Final score, Connecticut Huskies 77, USC 64. It was an interesting game. USC led 1-0. And then all of a sudden it was 5-1 UConn. USC went on their own run. A few minutes later, it was 11-5. USC led. I was like, all right, maybe they have a chance. They got up to a good start. Kiki Irifin, I always screw up her name and I apologize. Against Kansas State in the Sweet 16, she was like 3 for 13 from the floor. She had a really poor shooting night. Well, she came out hot. She was 3 for 6 before the first TV timeout. Then Connecticut adjusted. Kiki cooled off. And it was going to be a really rough game for USC. Look, basketball is a game of runs. So once UConn settled in after that timeout, they took a 12-11 lead. In fact, that was the last point USC scored in the first quarter. At the end of one, it was 14-11. If you watch this show and you're a regular everydayer, you know I'm not the biggest women's hoops person. Look, I'm just keeping it real. I think the skill level is just really hard to watch. I get bored. I've coached high school basketball before. Any good high school boys basketball team is going to be a women's team, just the way it is. With that said, this is a really good women's team. Again, it's just about the skill level. So there was one play in the first, I think it was in the first quarter. Kiki had this one step back from about 17 feet that, it looks sweet. It reminds you like, oh, Kobe Bryant used to do that. He used to burn people all game long. So she's a very skilled player. But once JuJu wasn't available and they figured out how to slow Kiki down, it was really Rhea Marshall. That was their offense. And she's not the greatest offensive player, but, she's one of the taller players. If you can get her the ball inside, she's going to do some damage. And she did a little bit. She was great from the free throw line. Anyways, at halftime, USC trailed 39-25. And Paige Beckers, All-American, she was just getting started. She had 13 points. The person who was killing USC her name was Sarah Strong. She had a double-double with 8.5 minutes to go in the third quarter. You had someone off the bench, last name Chen. She was just getting the and one the old-fashioned way, driving the lane. USC just didn't have the answer. In fact, if you can't make the three, you're going to struggle. And USC didn't hit a single three-pointer in the first half. UConn, they were like, I think 5 for 10. They were 50% from the field. That's going to be tough to overcome. In the first half alone, USC shot 36% from the field. They had 11 turnovers. And then it got worse in the third quarter. UConn bumped the lead up big. I think it was like 17 or 19 points, whatever. USC just got too far behind. They made a run. They cut the lead to 5 at the end of the third quarter. Again, they fought hard. But once the fourth quarter started again, UConn found their rhythm, and it was game over. USC they couldn't make enough baskets. They weren't hitting the three. And when you don't have to worry about JuJu, you can't put that much pressure on the freshmen. You got the 3 young ladies, Kennedy Smith, Avery, and I apologize, I can't remember the other one. But that's just too much pressure for the 3 freshmen. They played hard, just not enough firepower. So it sucks that they went down with their best effort. But again, they clawed their way back into it. They cut the lead to 5, new life. And then all of a sudden, like I said, Paige Becker, she was just getting started in the first half. She finished with 30. That's a really good UConn team. And when they had 3 players in double figures, they're making the threes. It's a really tough team to play. And Gino Oriyama, their head coach, he's been there before. A lot of those girls have been there before. Sarah Strong, she was just a freshman. But when you've got somebody like a Paige Becker you can lean on, and you get Caitlin Chan, I think her name was, who was the Ivy League Player of the Year at Princeton, who transferred to UConn, that's a lot to overcome. So you tip your hat to the ladies, say nice job. You wish JuJu a speedy recovery, and the ladies come back and try and do it again next year. The men, they tip off tonight against Tulane. They're in the college basketball crown tournament. Trojans are 8.5-point favorites. If they win, they're going to take on the winner between Colorado and Villanova. So I'll keep you up to date on what's going on there. All right. A lot of information. We know we got 2 commitments coming this week. I have a few. I think we know who one of them is. That'll happen on Saturday, the 5th. Who's the other one? And again, Chad Bowden, he's talking some big stuff. Feels good. And we talked about the running back in the first segment. What do you think about that? Hit me up in the comments section. Tell me what you think. I'll be back again tomorrow with another episode of Locked on USC. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.